Hello, and welcome back to Helppo. Today, we'll explain 5 tips that will improve your score on the listening section of the IELTS exam. The listening section is exactly the same for both the academic and general versions, so these tips will help you regardless of what version you plan to take. The IELTS exam will usually have these 4 components for the listening portion: everyday conversation, monologue, academic conversation, and academic monologue. Of course, there's no such thing as a listening hack to help you magically pick the right answer without preparation. The best way to get a high band score on your listening exam is to immerse yourself into spoken English. We'll also play some audio recordings similar to what you'll hear on the actual listening section and explain how you can effectively take notes for those recordings. Our 5 tips will help you prepare, so grab a notebook and pencil and let's dive in. The first thing you want to do is prepare good material. YouTube has a variety of different lectures, speeches, and talks on different subjects. Personally, I like to listen to TED Talks because the speakers often explain complicated concepts in a way that's easy to digest. Do you have a favorite Hollywood movie? Try looking up specific scenes with dialogue to hear words and phrases in a natural way. If you've been listening to an audiobook lately, try choosing just one chapter or section to use. I'd also recommend using a variety of materials. You can get monologues from talks or speeches, listen to dialogues in movies and TV shows, listen to conversations if possible. Find tutorials to practice following directions. These are just a few of the many options out there. Tip 2. Active listening. Once you've assembled the material you plan to use, it's time to start listening. You might think that listening to an English song or movie in the background while cleaning your house will help you get used to the language. However, it's important to actively listen to English material to build vocabulary, improve pronunciation, and practice listening to details. While you're listening to the material, take notes. Taking notes will help you learn to summarize passages. Be sure to write down any words you aren't familiar with and look them up in the dictionary afterwards. That way you can build your vocabulary as you practice listening. Let's practice this with a passage written by one of our tutors here at Helppo.
Taking classes at Berkeley. As a public school, Berkeley offers many big classes with students ranging from 50 to 1,000. Many classes offer lecture recordings that can be accessed anytime over the semester. With the current pandemic and all the realities of remote learning, the number of classes providing recordings will only increase. Class recordings are good so students can go back to any material they do not understand. For most of the classes, there are graduate student instructors, GSI, who coordinate the class and teach discussions. Discussions are usually offered once to 3 times a week, depending on classes. In discussions, GSIs will go over lecture notes, provide extra practice, answer questions, and proctor quizzes. It is important to attend discussions because many of them are mandatory, and sometimes GSI will provide some good input on what to focus on for exams. They are usually more accessible than professors, and their office hours can be a good resource for students. Besides discussions, some introduction classes also have student tutoring at SLC, Student Learning Center, by upperclassmen with good GPAs and who have taken the class before. However, when it gets close to midterms and finals, SLC can become overly crowded.
Remember, during the IELTS listening test, each audio recording plays only once. This is why it's so important to pay attention and to write down the critical information as you're listening. If you are an advanced English speaker, you might find the audio recordings fairly slow-paced, but don't get too comfortable. Pay attention. The audio recordings often include a speaker stating a telephone number, address, or other detailed information. They may initially state this information and then correct themselves by restating the information with at least one detail changed. Alternatively, sometimes a second speaker will correct them, so be careful you don't miss a correction being made. For example, a speaker might say the following: "Call the history department at 1-800-123-5678. Oh, I'm sorry, that's actually 1-800-304-9876. Additionally, when practicing at home, it's important to write down words from audio recordings that you don't understand. Afterward, you can look up their definitions. You should also memorize their spelling, because incorrectly spelled words will decrease your score. After you've taken notes and looked up any words you didn't understand, read over them a few times and try listening to the passage or watching the video again. You may be surprised to see how much more you understand the second time. Tip 3. Quality over quantity. When preparing for a big test, some students tend to burn themselves out by studying for hours on end. While cramming may help you memorize material long enough to recall it the next day, our goal here is to be able to retain and utilize vocabulary in English. There are a plethora of studies supporting quality over quantity when studying anything, including language. Think about it, if someone were to talk to you for 2 hours straight, how much would you remember about the conversation? Probably not too much. So instead of trying to cram a 2-hour movie or speech into your busy schedule every week, you can do 15 minutes a day of active listening. You'll understand better, become more familiar with the material, and you'll retain more information too. Tip 4. Familiarize yourself with the IELTS questions. Before taking the test, it's always a good idea to listen to the practice exams on the IELTS website. The exam's listening practice consists of 4 parts. The first part is a conversation about an everyday topic. You'll be given some time to look over the questions before listening, but remember that you should answer them as you listen to the reading. In addition to listening to sample tests online, you can prepare for this section by paying attention to dialogues in movies or TV shows, where characters are requesting information. For example, an interaction between a waiter and a patron, a car salesman and a client, or any other similar situation. The second part is usually about another everyday topic. This time, however, there will be a monologue. Tutorial videos on different subjects, announcements for upcoming events, and short stories are excellent resources to prepare. The next 2 parts are on academic subjects. The third part of the listening exam is a conversation between 2 professionals from a specific field. You can prepare by listening to interviews with professionals on specific academic topics. The fourth part is an academic monologue. There are plenty of lectures, talks, and dissertations that you can find on almost any subject. Knowing the structure of the listening practice will allow you to collect material specifically to prepare for this part of the IELTS exam. Here's another important detail. The IELTS instructions will often tell you to answer a question with a specific number of words. For instance, you might be told that the answer requires no more than 2 words and/or a number. With these instructions, if you wrote down very talented swimmers, that answer would be incorrect because it used 3 words, even if your answer was otherwise correct. There are several ways this question could be answered correctly. For instance, the word swimmers, or the 2-word answer talented swimmers. Alternatively, you could include a number such as 3 talented swimmers, or use a number alone like 3. Right before the actual exam, remind yourself to read the instructions carefully. They're very easy to miss when you're nervous and in a rush. You also want to remember that a question may ask you to select the correct multiple choice letter in response to something like, "In what city is the museum located?" In this case, if the correct answer is A, London, you need to write the letter. In this case, just A, not the name of the city. Your answer will be marked incorrectly if you write the name of the city in this example. Tip 5. Listen for important information. Each recording is played just once, so what should you listen for? Listen carefully for numbers, prices, dates, and names. Write down every detail you hear, though keep in mind that sometimes the speaker will be incorrect and need to correct themselves afterward. So don't get too excited if you think you hear the right answer. Rather, keep paying close attention and see if that detail is corrected later in the recording. The IELTS is always trying to come up with new ways to trick you, and the best way to counter that during the listening portion is by being detail-oriented. We'll now play a short monologue while showing you examples of good notes that correspond to the audio track. As you're listening, follow along with the notes to improve both your listening and your note-taking skills. Let's begin.
Well, I don't really know where to start. Let me think. Well, the first thing you have to do is find a family doctor, sometimes we call them general practitioners as well, and register with him or her. If you live here, you've got to be on a doctor's list. If you're not, things can get a bit difficult. Nobody will come out to you if you're not registered. Anyway, they work in things called practices, sort of small groups of family doctors all working together in the same building. Now what you've got to do is register with one of them. There are 2 practices near here, so we're quite well off for doctors in this part of Boulder. There's the Dean End Healthcare Center about 10 minutes' walk away, and there's another practice in Denver. That's about 5 minutes away going towards the town center. We're registered at the Dean End one, but they're both okay. There are about 6 doctors in our practice and 4 in the other, so ours is quite big in comparison. And the building and everything's a bit more modern. Their only problem is that they don't have a proper appointment system. Sometimes you have to wait for ages there to see someone. Anyway, you go to the receptionist in whichever health center and ask her to register you with a doctor there. You have to fill in a form, but it doesn't take long. Ours is called Dr. Jones, and we've been going to him for years, ever since we moved here 15 years ago. I wouldn't say he's brilliant, but I suppose he's all right, really. We're used to him now. They say he's very good with elderly people, but he does tend to get a bit impatient with children. Listen, the one who's supposed to be really good with small children is Dr. Shaw. I've heard lots of people say that. She's young, and she's got small children of her own. So you could try registering with her. And if her list is full, I heard somebody say the other day that there's a really nice young doctor at Colorado Springs, a Dr. Williams. He holds special clinics for people with back trouble. But that's not really your problem, is it? If you want a doctor to visit you at home, you have to ask for a home visit. You're supposed to do that before 10:30 in the morning, but obviously, if it's an emergency, you can phone at any time, night or day. It might not be your doctor that comes, though. It's quite often one of the other doctors in the practice. It doesn't really seem to make much difference. Otherwise, you can make an appointment to see your doctor at the health center. You usually get seen the same day. Not always, of course, but usually, as I say. They hold surgeries between 9 and 11:30 every weekday, and from 4 to 6:30 Monday to Thursday. Saturdays are only for emergencies. Oh, it's actually between 9:30 to 11:30 every weekday, and 4:30 to 11:30 Monday to Thursday. Yeah, that's right.
If a character is requesting something, take note of that and see whether that request was fulfilled or denied. When you hear a name, try to write 1 or 2 things about that person. When you hear a date, write what is happening or what is available. When you hear a number or a price, take note of what the item is as well. So let's sum up what we've covered in this video. Tip number 1, collect audio materials you have access to and enjoy listening to in English. These could include documentaries on YouTube, movies, TV shows, TED Talks, audiobooks, speeches, or tutorial videos. Tip number 2, make sure to engage in active listening. Pay attention to what you're listening to and don't just assume having an English channel on in the background is enough. Tip number 3, remember the quality of the audio content and what you do with it is far more important than the quantity. Listen to audio in small chunks to get the most out of it. Tip number 4, familiarize yourself with the IELTS questions. Knowing what to expect will help you respond correctly when you take the exam. Tip number 5, practice listening to dialogues and noting down the important details like times, places, people, prices, and so on. This exercise will help you practice for the exam. Do you have any other tips to share? If so, be sure to let us know with a comment down below. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel to keep getting more tips and tutorials. You can also visit us at Helppo.com to schedule a free trial lesson with one of our professional tutors. See you next time.